Well, it's a great afternoon, and it's all here at NTV Uganda. That is Kampala Capital City Authority. Well, this is mandated, if I should say, mandated under the Constitution in achieving her function of service delivery in the capital is provided for under the Capital City Authority Act in 2010. But in a bid to make sure that service delivery is at much more better stake, well, the City Authority of late it has automated most of its revenue administration processes, and most recently, new developments of client self-service have been introduced to our revenue administration system in trading license and all that. Now, to bring this conversation home, I'm joined by a gentleman from the Public Awareness Unit, Mr. John Zahawe. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, for starters, how are you holding up with COVID-19?
We are managing, I should say. We are observing and emphasizing the SOPs that were issued by the Ministry of Health and the government generally. And we are keeping up and making sure we stay safe and alive.
Perfect. Life is all that matters. So we are talking about business today, and there is a lot. I'm very, very happy to see you.
Yes.
One, to streamline a lot of disparities and communication gaps.
Okay.
One, people always think that because I have a certificate from URSB,
Yes.
and I work within Kampala, it's okay. I don't need any other person. Why does someone need a license, an operational license from KCCA?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chamagelo. First and foremost, it is a requirement of the law for one to have a license before they can engage in any trading. And in that sense, it is prohibited for anyone to conduct business, whether in trading in goods or services, without acquiring a license from the local authority, and in this case KCCA. But secondly, it is important for one to acquire a trading license because it helps KCCA manage trade order in the city and also provide services, because the fees or the revenues that are generated from issuance of trade license is what is used to provide the services that city dealers enjoy.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that is very pertinent, but what is the procedure of getting a license then?
It's quite an elaborate procedure that starts with registration. I liked your introduction because KCCA has put a lot of effort into automation, moving away from the manual processes of registration. And what has been in existence has also been improved further with addition of self-service by the clients. And that is what we intend to have them know about, so that especially with COVID, as you've mentioned, people can transact with KCCA in a safe manner.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
With less interaction, physical interaction.
Yes, with the less physical interaction, of course. So the registration process can be accessed online.
Okay.
We have the KCCA website where one can access what is called the ECT Online Payments Portal.
Okay.
ECT Online Payments Portal, accessed through the KCCA website. There are many portals there, but for business license and online payments particularly, one has to go to the ECT Online Payments. Once one reaches there, there are several options. There's an option to log in, but one can't log in except they are first registered. So the first point is to do a registration, and that registration is for a city operator identification number.
Okay. Coin.
Yes, we call it coin. It is similar to the tax identification number of URA. Yes.
So here they will ask you, what is your coin?
Yes.
Okay.
For any transactions any taxpayer does with KCCA,
within Bitcoin.
Yes, that's the first question asked. Do you have a coin? So it is very important that a client who intends to do any transactions within the capital city registers for a coin. So when one goes onto the website, clicks onto the ECT Online Payments Portal, they can register for coin.
Okay.
So what KCCA has done is introduce self-registration.
Okay.
Before, a client would have to bring the documents, a lot of documents, yes.
And the queuing.
And the queuing, that is right. So that is done away with. They go on the portal, click on registration, because we have two categories of registration. There's first-time registration. That is for a
new entrant.
Yes, a new entrant who has not transacted with KCCA before or done any business or formalized their business in the city. So for first-time registrations, they have to, of course, have acquired a few other registrations from URSB. They would have registered their business name if they're trading as an individual. So they have a registration certificate from URSB. If it is a company, they would have incorporated their business and registered as such. So after getting a registration certificate from URSB, they would also be required to have with them a TIN from URA. That's the tax identification number. And they would also need a national ID and a statement of particulars. If it is an individual, but for a company, they would need to have Form 7 or Form 20. Form 7 is the old one. This has the particulars of the directors of the company. So with that information, they can go on our system and do a self-registration. Yes, they fill it in. And once that is done, the system auto-generates a reference number, which goes to their phone contact that they would have availed in the registration. And it is that reference number that is availed to a KCCA officer to approve the registration. Yes.
All this is done at the comfort of your home?
Yes, at the comfort of your home, on your computer, laptop. If not, you go into an internet cafe somewhere. You could do all this. You can do all this as long as you can access internet.
Wow. Now, this is very interesting.
Yes, sir.
KCCA, URA, URSB are all looking at having a single registration form that can pick information already submitted to one institution.
Yes.
How does this work? Are you trying to make a one-stop center where where you can do everything just in a click?
Yes. Currently, we have a physical version of that, I would say, in that at the KCCA offices, we have all these institutions represented. Anyone who has visited, let's say, City Hall at the Premium Office, you find URSB, URA and KCCA. So that's the physical version of the intended form. So that is being worked on, and the intention is that if information has been availed to either one of the institutions, then it can be picked up by this form, and there's no need to go to another for the same. But for now, one form. Yes. For now, one has to have registered with URSB, with URA, and then go on our online portal and register for coin.
Wow. Yes. This makes it easy. Now, Mr. Habwe, if I want, let me say I have my business in Kampala, but I would wish to have a branch maybe in Kumi or a Bim district or Jinja or Mbadara, do I still have to register them independently? But when I want to use the same license, how do I go about that?
So KCCA, as the authority governing the capital, regulates business in the capital city. So it is largely about the businesses within Kampala. So one can add a business branch for a business operating in Kampala. And that would be for someone who has already registered and has a coin with KCCA. In that case, they would not have to register for a fresh coin for the new business, but they would add their new business onto the existing coin. Yes. So
that makes it easy. What if I want to move my business from, let me say it's now in Chira, and I want to put it in Machindi? Do I still have to re-register again?
In that case, you'd only apply to transfer your business from one location to another. And there is an aspect that should become clear at this point. Business license is governed in the sense that there are grades for different areas that were gazetted in the law, and the different grades pay different fees.
No wonder
depending,
they're very expensive.
Yes, depending on the nature of the business as
Okay.
well. Okay, there is the aspect of the nature of the business, but also the
location.
grade where this business is located.
Okay.
So if one is transferring their business, let's say from March India to Central Business District, there comes in an aspect of a higher rate of the business.
Because you're coming to the hotspot now.
Yes, you're coming to a hotspot where the grade is higher and the fees are higher. So in that case, one would make an application requesting to transfer their business, and if it is getting into a higher grade, then you would have to do a top-up in the fees they initially paid on their license.
Oh.
Yes.
So that is the transfer you're talking about?
Yes, that's the transfer.
I'm moving from March India to Kampala. What happens if my license expires then?
So if your license expires, before we get to the expiration of the license, I think it is important that the viewers know how long a license lasts.
I need to know that.
Yes, under the law, a license lasts only 12 months.
Okay.
Yes, its duration is only for 12 months, and the time begins running from the date it is issued. Okay. So one counts 12 months from that point.
From the time, yes.
Yes, and once it has expired, they are required to do a renewal. Okay. Because once it is expired, it is as good as not there. So they would have to do a renewal, which brings in the aspect of a second kind of registration.
Yes, past the one who was just an
starting afresh.
Now there's a second user.
A second user will already have a coin and would have a PIN.
Yes.
I did not mention this earlier. When you register for a coin, one, you get a coin, but you also get a PIN.
That's sent to your number.
Yes, that is sent to your number, which PIN you can always use to log in.
Oh.
Whereas the coin is static, it never changes.
Yes.
The PIN can be changed.
Over time.
Over time. Let's say if someone accesses your PIN and you need it changed, it can be reset. Or if you forget it, it can be reset. And once you initiate the process of resetting your PIN, KCCA will reset it and send it to your phone number. Okay. So someone who has registered before, all they need to do is go again on the ECT online payment portal and log in
with a PIN.
With their PIN and apply for a renewal
of the license.
So in this case, they will click for they will select the renewal of the license, and because the information is already captured on the system, there's no need for entering new information. Their grade is established, the amount they're supposed to pay,
and they're still in
which is also gazetted, is in there. It auto-populates. And if it is someone with several branches of a business, they have to select the particular branch under their coin that they intend to renew a license for. Because it could be that the different businesses started at different periods, and their licenses are expiring at different times. So he selects that particular branch, business branch that they need to renew a license for. And after that, they generate a payment reference number.
Oh,
yes.
I hear you. Now, is this possible to be done via mobile money? Or is it via Payway or Visa card? Because I'm doing it at my own convenience, at my own home possibly. Maybe I'm driving and traffic is heavy and I say, you know what, in this traffic, let me just renew all these. Is it user-friendly when it comes to terms of payment? Yes,
at that point of generating a payment reference number, the system gives you an option. Whether to use a bank or mobile money.
Who would go for a bank?
whether to pay by cash or by check. Yes, so all those options are in there, and you select one that is most convenient for you. Yes, and once you have generated the payment reference number, the form will download. You can print it off and take it to the bank if you have to use the bank. But if you're going to use mobile money, what you need off of the phone is the payment reference number.
Yes, it's what you put in.
Yes, it's what you put in, and it will automatically pick the details that are of your business. So your payment is for your business. It can't get lost.
This is interesting.
Yes, and then after that, once the payment is made in the bank, the license is automatically generated in the system. Automatically, you can log in and print it off. So before, we have used security paper because it was a manual process. But with these improvements, we're using ordinary paper.
Yes.
Because the system...
But they have some codes on them, I think.
Yes, it has a barcode. And once you have printed off the license and displayed it in your business as required under the law, all that we are then doing is monitoring and enforcement as KCCA to check and see if what you have put up there is indeed generated from the system and is valid.
Okay. Yeah. Now, that's very interesting. Thank you so much, Hawe. Now, let's talk about property rates.
Yes.
It is something that has taken a lot of attention and it gets to people in Kampala. Whenever they tell me that, Mr. Chamagero, your property rate is, I'm like, what's going on? It's my property at the end of the day.
Yes.
Let's first understand, what is property rate?
So property rate is a levy on all immovable property or buildings that are used for commercial purposes. These can include private schools, rented shops, and rented houses. Yes.
Rentals?
Yeah, rentals,
apartments
basically.
and all.
Yes, apartments and all, even private hospitals, public and private universities. Any commercial, any property used for commercial purposes is given a levy that we call property rates.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, who is eligible to pay property and why should they pay?
Yes. Under the law, the owner of a property used for commercial purposes is eligible to pay property rates. And of course, the reason why they should pay property rates
goes earning.
it goes back to the mandate and the function of KCCA, which is to provide services in the capital. Because, like we mentioned with the trade license, it comes back down to provision of services.
Yes.
And KCCA uses what comes from the public to execute its mandate. And so it is important that people pay property rates so that roads are built, streets are lit, garbage is collected, the environment is maintained. All that takes money. So it becomes very important and imperative that property owners who are making money from a good environment that has been paid for also make a contribution to the service delivery.
Well, I want to understand, how do they, does KCCA come up with the property rate of a particular building, or do they depend on location, or do they depend on, what exactly do they depend on to tell you now your property rate is going to be this?
So there is a process called property valuation that is provided for under the law. That is the Local Government Rating Act of 2005. And during the process of valuation, what is called gross income or the gross rate is determined at that level, and this is the estimated annual income that the property generates. And once the gross rate is determined, there is an allowable deduction, an allowable deduction from the gross rate, which is 22%. Wow. It is called conservancy fees under the law.
Per annum, 22%.
22% of the gross expected income. So it is conservancy fees which is deducted and not taxed. And after the conservancy fees have been, the conservancy percentage has been deducted, we now have what is called the rate per annum. So the rate per annum is what is left after deduction of 22% that is subjected to 6%.
Wow.
Yes, the law provides for a rate that can range up to 12%.
Oh God.
A maximum of 12%. But KCCA has for quite a long time only been levying a rate of 6%.
6%?
Yes.
Minus the 22%?
Yes, minus the 22%. what is left is subjected to a 6%, and that is the rate per annum.
Okay.
That is paid by the taxpayer on an annual basis.
Annual basis.
Yes.
All right. Then how does one pay for property rates? Because there are these chaps who come from these, they always use the word division.
Yes.
I'm from the division. I'm from, and they are very rough in a way. I should be very blunt with you on these. They're very rough, those who come from the division, and at times they could even want to put a seal on your property that you can't access it unless you come to the division. So how does one pay for property rates, and how do the people at the division know that, oh, Chamagilo cleared for this property?
So the aspect of the division that you're talking about comes down to the structure of KCCA. Some people only know City Hall when they hear of KCCA, but KCCA, rather Kampala, capital city, is divided in 5 divisions administratively. So KCCA has 5 divisions: Nakawa, Rubaga, Machindye, Kawempe, and Central Division. And of course, there is the headquarters at City Hall. So even the administration of taxes is managed at the division level, where the properties are located.
Okay.
Yes. So when a KCCA official from the division is visiting or interacting with the taxpayer, most likely they are bringing a demand letter, which is a notification of the tax liability that the property owner has. Okay. The desire of KCCA is that taxpayers comply voluntarily, and that is why we are coming out here, so that we reach out to them and they understand, and then they can come to us on their own and make
without coercion.
Without us having to come to them. But nevertheless, we do come to make a reminder, because
it's your mandate.
It's our mandate and our obligation to collect these revenues. So we do issue demand letters, okay, to notify taxpayers of their liability and also advise them on how to make payments. Yes. So even in the area of property tax, there has been improvements. Okay. That the public needs to know about. And these have come out of the CAMCAMV system. About 2015, a new valuation was done for the whole of Kampala. And right now, all the divisions, all the 5 divisions of Kampala have new valuation rolls.
Nice.
And this was done using what we call the city address model and the CAM and the computer-aided mass valuation. And
how does it work?
The way it works is that properties were mapped to the GIS okay, during this process. And so the next valuation may not need a physical visit to the property. It is automatic because all the property details, including pictures and locations of these of the properties, are all mapped up in the system, and they can do a new valuation without having to physically come to you. Okay. But for properties which were not captured during the main valuation, have been captured under supplementary valuation rolls, but which are still yet to get completed. So that is for Machindye, Rubaga, and Kawempe. Okay. Their supplementary valuation are yet to come on board. So beyond that, there is a new system for managing property rates. In Kampala? In Kampala. We have been using the ECT system to manage property rates administration, but KCCA has now introduced the CAMCAMV system, and it is right now being piloted in Nakawa division. Yes. So the beautiful aspect about the CAMCAMV system is that it allows self-service. Okay. It allows self-service.
So I can see the value of my property.
Yes. You can go on the CAMV system and you can view the details of your properties. Yes. All you need to know is your name. If you know your coin number, you can put it in there. It can also reveal details of your properties. If even your phone number, anything that was captured during the valuation process and input on the system
will be shared,
can allow a property owner to use it to access the full details of their property. Then the other aspect that the system allows the property, the clients to do, is to generate payment reference numbers for themselves.
Oh,
Yes.
that's nice.
Yes. After viewing the details of your property and the amounts due, you can register a payment reference number and take it to the bank and pay without coming.
Okay.
to KCCA.
You can equally pay using mobile money.
Yes, you can equally pay using mobile money.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a conversation we're still having here. It's a conversation with KCCA, especially with regards to property rights and payment, basically compliance with regards to taxation. I mean, the gentleman called John Zahabwe from the business and how to be compliant with regards to business in the metropolitan city, especially all the divisions of Kampala that are under the KCCA authority. And with me in studios, I have Mr. John Zahabwe from the Public Awareness Unit. Earlier on, before we went for the break, Mr. Habwe, we're talking about something to do with the property rights and how they're paid and all that. So what happens to someone if he is not paid and he has penalties to pay? Then the other bit I want to understand, does the system allow me to pay in installments? You know how we earn in Kampala. I could be having areas of like 7 million, but today I have 3. Can I deposit the 3 and, you know?
Thank you, Mr. Chamaga, for that question. Firstly, I would like to say that property rates is annual.
Yes.
And it runs with the financial year. So a new rate always falls due on the 1st of July.
Okay.
And one has an entire year, so to speak, within which to pay the rate. But the law allows specifically the payment of the rate in 2 equal installments.
Oh.
And if a rate is not paid within its year, it becomes arrears, which also under the law attract a penalty of 2% of that very rate per month. For the entire time that it remains unpaid, the rate attracts a penalty of 2%. So it is important that the rates are paid in their time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and the law has been flexible enough as to allow a 2 installment payment.
Okay.
Yes, but of equal measure. I had you mention 7 and you have 3.
Yes.
The law provides for 2 equal installments.
Okay.
So if you have 7 as your outstanding
balance
liability,
yes,
then you'd be looking at 3.5.
Yes, you have to get the 500 from somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then let's talk about the unpaid ones. If someone doesn't comply with what the law says and doesn't pay adamantly, maybe arrogantly, what becomes of them?
The law provides 3 options of recovery.
One
is recovery by action. And this includes what most taxpayers are familiar with. KCCA issues a demand, which is always expected that the taxpayer will respond to. But when the taxpayer does not respond to, then that demand can lead to a court action. Okay. And the other option of recovery, the law allows the authority to collect this money or to recover this money from the tenants.
It's off KCCA?
Yes.
Okay.
It can make this demand from the tenants or the people that are using the property and are ordinarily supposed to be paying the property owner. So what they owe to pay the property owner
goes to KCCA?
Goes to KCCA to settle the liability that the property owner has with the authority.
So until when the liability is done, then they start to pay back?
Yes, then they start to pay back to the...
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Now, that takes us to ground rent.
Yes, sir.
What is ground rent? We need to understand what is ground rent because the enforcement team as well usually come and say, you've not paid ground rent for this long, and you're like, okay, I had property rent, I paid that. Now ground rent, what does it mean? Yes,
for starters, I think it is important to clarify that there is a difference between ground rent and property rates.
Thank you.
So like we mentioned, the property rate is is levied on the buildings that are used for commercial purposes. But ground rent, on the other hand, is an annual payment made by a tenant who is, in this sense, a lessee to a landlord for the period that has been agreed upon under a lease.
Okay.
And for Kampala Capital City Authority, the tenants or the lessees would be on land that has been offered by Kampala District Land Board to the tenant. So someone who has a lease agreement with KCCA is expected to pay, or is required to pay ground rent. It is a term in the lease agreement that ground rent has to be paid annually.
By the lessee?
By the lessee to the lessor. And ground rent is paid after someone has paid what is called premium.
Okay.
Yes. So when one is applying or acquiring a lease, they first pay premium. So there's a difference between those two as well.
Yes.
Property rates, ground rent, and premium. So when one applies for a lease, they first pay premium. Premium is a one-off payment, and oftentimes it is approximately 25% of the market value of the property, of the land, and ground rent is 10% of the premium. So premium is paid as a one-off once when one is acquiring a lease, but ground rent is paid annually.
Okay.
Yes, and unlike property rates, which falls due on the 1st of July, ground rent falls due on the 1st of January. Yes, so there's always been a confusion where someone has paid ground rent and they think their liability as far as their property is concerned is sorted. But if one has a lease from Kampala District Land Board, that is land under KCCA, and also has developments on the land that are used for commercial purposes, that person has a liability of two kinds: ground rent and property rates. The other unique aspect about ground rent is that even if the land has no developments on it, for as long as one has a running lease, they would still be required to pay, or they are liable to pay ground rent.
Okay.
Yes.
I totally now understand. What if the lease owner does not pay ground rent? What happens?
Two things can happen. But one, that they would have breached a term of the lease agreement. Okay, because when they sign for the agreement, they're agreeing to the terms, one of which is payment of ground rent. So one option is what is called re-entry under land laws, which would allow the lessor to come and take back the property, the land particularly, and lease it to another person. And in the event that a liability is still subsisting, it can also be recovered by distress.
In one way or the other?
Yes.
That's interesting. Now,
but it is always important that, you know, lessees rather meet their obligations so that there is a harmonious existence. And
business running.
Yes.
Is it possible for a person to occupy KCCA land without lease title and without paying ground rent?
It is illegal. Such a person would actually be a trespasser. I've
seen a lot of cases where people say this is our property, it's family property, and KCCA says that is our property.
Yes.
And we've had all that back and forth. I saw it in Tunyafunze's case. There was a precedent where KCCA said that's one of our property, and this back and forth. And the lawyer, I remember, of KCCA said, is an illegal occupant of this. So coming back to this, can someone occupy KCCA land without a lease title? That is one. Then two, that person not paying ground rent.
Also, firstly, one cannot occupy KCCA land without a title, because this is land under management, this is land under administration, and there is particular land under the administration of KCCA, which is offered by Kampala District Land Board. So if any person is occupying that land without a lease, like I mentioned earlier,
is an illegal,
is a trespasser.
Nice one.
But they might be out there, and that is why we have come out here to say, if
you're warning
out,
them before action comes.
if you're out there and you are sitting on KCCA land without a lease, we urge you to come and approach KCCA and make an application
of that
for
very
a
land.
lease. Yes, for that very land. There is an elaborate procedure for acquisition of a lease title. Yes, which I'm hoping that we can quickly go through. So you make an application, you regularize, you stay on the land and pay ground rent so that
now in that instance,
yes.
does he pay the ground rent from the time when he came, whether he occupied the land, or as he starts to pay after registration?
Like I mentioned, ground rent is a product of an agreement, in which case it's a lease agreement. Okay. So once the agreement, once the lease is issued, then the obligations fall due. And one is then required to begin paying the annual ground rent for as long as the lease is subsisting. The other aspect I could mention is that the tenures of the leases do vary. Okay. Yeah, we have leases of 49 years and leases of 99 years. It all depends on what the Kampala District Land Board offers to the particular person interested in a land. Yeah,
that makes it even much more easy. Now let's talk about commercial road user fees. Yes. This is something to do with the property temporary route chart, KCCA, and all that. How does it work?
So with commercial road user fees, what I should mention first is that there was the Kampala Capital City Commercial Road Users Regulations of 2015, which were in operation for a while until about 2017. So they're about when they were, when the implementation of the provisions of that law were suspended. But this year, in May, amendments were made under the local government's amendment of the 5th schedule instrument, which amended parts of the Kampala Capital City Commercial Road User Fees, road users regulations. So this amendment introduced the aspect of park user fees. And the park user fees is different in the sense that this regulates road users beyond Kampala. Okay. Yes, this is looking at local governments. So it introduces aspects of commercial road use operators that ply the routes across districts. Okay. As opposed
you're going to Mbarara, you're passing through Kampala, you're just heading straight.
Yes. So we do have, I would say, two kinds of operators. There are those that operate within Kampala, for example, but there are those who operate between Kampala and Mukono. Oh, yes. So the new amendment has catered for that aspect, and all road users, commercial road users, are required now to do a registration. Okay, a registration that specifically indicates where they operate from and between which places. That is what brings in the aspect of route charts. Route charts and the like. But the purpose of registration, if I could go far, is just so that there can be gazetting of parking space, for example.
So you know exactly where you're going to park if you get into
the and so we know how many users, how many operators we are dealing with. Okay, so there is that aspect, but then there's the aspect of traffic planning, and then the enforcement.
Well, KCCA finally is planning for traffic. Traffic is horrendous. I don't know where you stay, Mr. Habwe, but at times it takes you 1.5 hours to get to Serena. Yet ideally it should take you like a maximum of 20 minutes. But because of this, the operation of uncoordinated transport system, it becomes very, very tedious to get to destinations in time.
The aspect of the route chart, we're optimistic is actually going to sort out some of these challenges, because it would mean people, users or commercial road users who are operating on a particular route,
they will stay on that road.
They're staying on that route, and the aspects of, there could be jam this side, let me switch to the other one.
They do that to my people in the evening when you go to the downtown tax park. They say, which side are you going, Matuge? What do you jam? And they take an entirely different route because maybe the traffic is very bad for them, but maybe Entebbe route is much more, you know, lucrative.
Yes.
You could take like 2 routes and you're done. This is going to save us from all that.
Yes, that is the plan, because we're talking about traffic planning and trade order. Yes, so if one has registered to operate on Ginger Road, Nakawa, Ntinda.
That's a rotational route.
Yes, whether suddenly he sees more people standing on the roadside going to Machinde, it is none of his business.
He made his call.
Yeah, he made his call. He sticks to that.
One.
And even one who has registered to operate within a particular local government, let's say Kampala, is not expected to suddenly drive to Mukono, except he comes and changes his route chart. Then
so what happens to these taxis? You see, we are Africans.
Yes.
A friend of mine would lose a relative and we are going to bury in Buyikwe. And we hire this taxi.
Yes.
And it's driving us through Mukono to Buyikwe. So what becomes of that? He's on a wrong route chart, but he's taking us for burial.
And if he is registered to operate only within Kampala, if he is found on the
route chart that is not meant to be.
Yes, he would be on the wrong side of the law to begin with. But one of the reasons why the law has been amended and clearly...
So if you're going to Wikwe, you must find a car on that route chart.
Yes, because there is a requirement under the law that the route chart should be displayed where, where the commuters can actually view it. So that if a commuter is jumping on a taxi and realizes it's supposed to be on Entebbe Road, they too can say, no,
I'm not going.
I'm not going, because it means anytime it will run into, let's say, traffic officials, and it will be impounded right there because it's on the wrong route.
Oh, yes.
But the other aspect is the law provides for options. Okay? Provides for options. If one knows they will once in a while do business across several districts, then they can apply for, they can register and acquire for a route chart that allows them to
rotate, whatever.
Yes, to move through various
Let's talk
locations.
about outdoor advertisement.
Yes.
How is KCCA handling this, and how do people go about the payment of all this?
So outdoor advertisement has actually been halted for a few months now.
Why?
There was a court ruling that did halt the collection of outdoor advertisement fees. So at the moment, KCCA is not collecting outdoor advertisement fees.
Okay.
That is, however, not to say that there is a lacuna as far as regulation of outdoor advertising in the city is concerned, because anyone who intends to do any form of outdoor advertising still is required to get clearance from the physical planning directorate.
To have it run.
Yes.
All right. Now let's go into the cars now that given that is suspended. Let's go into the car. What's the purpose of registration of commercial vehicles in the capital city, for starters? I've seen people making noise about this.
So, well, like I mentioned earlier, the purpose is the planning and gazetting of parks, but also traffic planning. What has happened is there has been an initial registration which happened around July, and the commercial road user operators have been given a grace period because enforcement is going to begin later on. So at the moment we're urging the taxi operators, special hire operators, bus operators, those who operate coasters, to come forward and do registration and acquire route charts. The process is a little bit involving of several institutions. Currently, like for Kampala's case, there is a KCCA involved because that's where the let's say taxis are operating from.
Yes.
So they come and register with KCCA, after which they go to Ministry of Works, where they acquire a PSV that allows them to operate passenger vehicles in the case of taxis. And before I could jump that. The registration under KCCA requires a few things, which include...
That's what I wanted to know, what one requires to register this.
Yes, it requires photocopies of 2 identification documents for the individual, then a certificate of incorporation if it is a company. A company that is operating a fleet of buses or taxis, for example.
Is that why the government has been saying that people should operate in circles than just standing alone, one car, but rather operate in a cluster?
No, it's more an acknowledgement that some people operate as individuals, depending on their capacity, but then there are others who operate under a company. So depending on the category under which one operates, the requirements for registration would be different. Yes, one who's operating under a company would need to bring a certificate of incorporation, then a tax identification number, that is from URA, then Form 20 or Form 7, which has the details of the directors, and one ID of each of the directors. They would also need to bring a vehicle logbook and driving permit for the driver, then a valid car rental sticker for special hire vehicles, PSV for buses, and then what is called OTV for light and heavy good vehicles.
Okay. Where does one do this registration if you're around Kampala? Do we have to come to KCCA offices in Kampala here, or do we have to go to the Ministry of Works and Transport?
In Kampala, the registration is being done at the various division offices. If one is resident and operating in Nakawa, they do not need to come to City Hall, for example. They can do registration at Nakawa. So all our division offices are doing the registration. And one can go there and do the registration.
Commercial cars?
Yes.
Okay. Why is it necessary for the owners to register the cars with KCCA for starters? Because already the logbook is in my name for starters, that is 1. 2, I registered with URSB. They know that Andrew Chamagero has a fleet of these cars and they're doing this business. Maybe he's into transportation as an individual. Then why should I come to KCCA to register?
It's like I mentioned, the law has made it a requirement for one to register to pay park user fees. Because right now one cannot acquire, or rather the law requires one to have cleared or paid park user fees before they can be granted a PSV by the Ministry of Works. And this comes down into revenue collection ultimately. Whereas before, under the commercial road users regulations, it was KCCA alone. Under this amendment, the local government amendment of the 5th schedule, the fees that is collected is actually collected through URA. And the Ministry of Finance then it distributes this money that is collected from the taxi operators or commercial road user operators among the various local governments where the taxi operator, rather the commercial road user operator, does apply. So if he's only operating within Kampala, that means the park user fees he pays shall be returned to Kampala. If he operates between Kampala and Mukono, the law again provides for a portion.
One for Kampala, one for Mukono.
Depending on where he registered as originating or operating from. Yes, so registering is crucial because it also has an implication of where the revenues would go. And like I mentioned, KCCA needs these revenues to provide services to the city.
What if one doesn't want to pay these, doesn't want to register his vehicle with KCCA? What happens to them?
It will be, one, they will have broken the law. And it will be difficult for them
to
operate. Because again, there's the aspect of trade order and planning. So without registration and payment of park fees, one will not be able to get PSV from Ministry of Works, meaning they cannot be on the road ferrying passengers. Yes.
What are the fees payable by each commercial vehicle and how often are they paid? We need to understand that because paper times are doomed to be about these figures. They say you should pay 100,000, yet it should be 50,000. So we need to understand what are the fees payable by each commercial vehicle and how often are they paid?
Yes, thank you for that question, because it brings in clarity that many have been inquiring about. Previously, the commercial road user fees were paid on a monthly or quarterly or annual basis. But under this amendment, the fees are paid annually.
Okay, per annum.
Per annum. It's a one-time payment. And for taxi, cab and light omnibus operating within and outside of Kampala, that is one which crosses boundaries of a particular local authority, they pay 840,000 per year. Then taxi, cab and omnibus operating within Kampala alone, they pay 720,000 shillings
per annum.
Per annum. And medium omnibus and heavy omnibus, we're talking about those with a capacity of above 20 passengers. So coasters and buses, those do pay 2,400,000 shillings per annum. Then pickup trucks pay 240,000, and small trucks with a tonnage of about 2.5 and less than 10 tons, they pay 1,152,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Then we go to, there are so many of these trucks they call Diana, tipper. Don't they pay?
Oh, they do pay. Tippers and the big trucks, the famous Magulukumis, they pay 2,304,000. Okay. And then other goods vehicles that may not be in the description given above, those do pay 450,000 per annum. Yeah. That's
very interesting. That's a conversation we've had with Jones Hawe here from the Public Awareness Unit of KCCA. So when KCCA is gazetting all these, where would one find this information if they need to find it, Mr. Hawe? As we're winding up.
Yes, as we're winding up, one can visit our offices at the various divisions or even at City Hall, that is the KCC headquarters. But they can also call our toll-free number, which is 0800-990000, or they can email KCCA at info@kcca.go.ug.
Wow.
And they can get all this information and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Hawe. I love your portals. They work, especially when it goes to the other side. I've used a lot of your portals. Now I'm going to try this. So my fellow Ugandan, if you have a business within the metropolitan area and you want to be very compliant, you want to pay your taxes, or you're a business owner, but your taxman was in one or the other playing games about what you paid for and what you didn't pay for, just log on to the KCCA portal, get to know how you can pay, and you can be in touch with all these. This was all because KCCA wants an automated city that is free of congestion of traffic. Not only that, a city where you are proud to live in and do business within. Good afternoon.